Good morning, folks. Welcome to Coffee with Artists. My name is Rachel Wilkins. Delighted to be here, back after a small hiatus. We've been gone for a couple of weeks, but we're delighted to be back. I have a wonderful guest this morning. The wonderful Rhonda Burton is joining me from a very early West Coast this morning. So, Rhonda, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure. And as I said to you, it's the first time in months I've put makeup on. So There we go.
These new COVID realities, right? It's these new things that we're not necessarily accustomed to dealing with. One of them being drying our hair and putting makeup on.
That's true. That's true.
So you're out in California. The news is just unbelievable what we're seeing coming out of Cali right now. We were just talking briefly before we jumped on about the wildfires out there right now. Can you tell us a little bit about how maybe you're impacted by that or what you're seeing?
Well, I live in Los Angeles, and I don't have, thank goodness, that much of an impact. I mean, Northern California, it's just horrifying. And you've probably seen pictures of just like apocalyptic skies. It's, like end times or something. I mean, it's terrible. A lot, as well as the loss of life and property and so forth. But here, thank goodness, we have not been impacted greatly. I do wake up sometimes in my backyard and the patio furniture is full of ash. But my heart goes out to everybody impacted. It's terrible.
Super scary. It's the earthquakes that scare me about California as well.
Well, yeah, we have go bags packed in the cars and in the closets, and
Oh my goodness. I think every part of America has some kind of severe or extreme weather or natural occurrence that they have to worry about. So, well, you're a mixed media artist. You have been working in photography in a variety of different mediums over the years. Tell me, what is it you find yourself drawn to right now? What's kind of the medium that you're working with today? What speaks to you right now?
Well, right now, just backtracking a little bit, I had been a painter, watercolor, and I had kind of come across this bag of scrap kimono fabrics. And I started using those in my still lifes painting. And then they became a little more and more abstract. And so that kind of became my artistic path and my artistic vision, in a sense. I actually folded large watercolor papers into fans. I created freestanding screens, and all having painted. So those images started off as floral and kind of became a little more on the abstract side. And then they just became shapes. They became petals and bird feather shapes and this long, elongated kind of curvilinear shape. And so that was where my painting was. My life changed in a whole variety of ways. And then I stopped painting. I had put my art career on hold for a while. And then I had started doing some photography because the industry I was in, it was very stressful. So at the end of the day, I'd walk my dog. I would take my camera. And as my son-in-law says, the best camera is always the one you have in your hand. So it was my iPhone. And so I began taking pictures of the gardens and florals and tree bark and shadows. And then I made a line of stationery. I made that into fabrics. I created folding hand folding fans. So then I wanted to make it more on a fine art level. I was able to retire and I put more energy into my art. So at that point, I took the same kinds of images. I had them printed on acrylic and I had them backed with aluminum.
Wow.
And so it was really sleek and
kind of like the one we're seeing in the background then?
Well, now this one is an image printed on paper.
Hmm.
And I went back in with colored pencil, so it's hand embellished. It's mounted on a wooden panel.
Nice.
And then there is a sheet of acrylic on top of that. So that's pretty much where I am now.
Hmm.
I'm working on paper. Trying to do smaller series at this point because it's easier for me to print versus getting out to the printer.
Yes.
In the midst of COVID. So
absolutely. How are you feeling impacted by COVID? I mean, we're several months in now, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know you over the last few months because you've been in my art business boot camp class.
Yes, which is wonderful, by the way.
Thank you.
Get on to her. She's good. Okay.
I'm going to say that. No, it's wonderful getting to know you in the group, and obviously I think we have a really nice sense of community with the other artists in there because so many are missing the shows, right? We're missing that
terrible
in that experience. How are you feeling impacted, both personally and as an artist right now?
Well, personally, I miss my kids. I miss hugging and kissing my kids, my grandkids. I can't. That to me is the biggest impact. And thankfully, I haven't known anybody who has. I know a couple of people who have had COVID and have recovered, thankfully. But that's the extent of that. But and I miss going out. I miss seeing my friends and going and having lunch. But with that said, I don't think my creativity has been impacted dramatically. My imagery is basically the garden. It's outside. So I'm still doing that. I have thousands of pictures. So I can still work and rework my imagery. And then I find new stuff and, So as far as that's concerned, what comes out of me creatively has not been impacted as much. Now, getting it to live in somebody else's home, that's been impacted slightly,
Yeah. So let's talk a little about the process. So, obviously you have this, you're just sharing with me like where you live in the world, right? It's a beautiful, you're on a bluff and you have these, in fact, tell everybody what your view is because we can all get a little jealous.
You know what? We are very fortunate. We live in West LA and I live on this bluff. So on a clear day, I can see the ocean all the way to the Hollywood sign. Wow. So I have no idea what that mileage is, but I've got this gorgeous panoramic view. Oh. And I swear, every day we get up and it's just, I feel very fortunate to be here. And on the nights where the sun goes down and it's dramatic, I have a whole bunch of it, just incredibly strong, dramatic cloud formations and sunsets.
And there's nothing like the sunsets on the Pacific side. They're just stunning. California sunsets, Hawaii, amazing.
Yes.
So being somewhere which is so rich in color and the environment, the ecology there, everything is just so beautiful, right?
It is. It really is.
How do you go about how do you determine what you're going to focus on, what your subject matters are? When you, like you said, you take thousands of photographs. When do you know when you've got that one that you're going to really invest in, working?
Well, I love color. I love texture and pattern. So for me, I would take my dog out every day, a couple times a day, and I would just snap pictures. So now that she's gone, I'm still doing that, though. I know. I'm sorry. It's fun to get over that. But so I still do that. I still go out. A lot of it depends. It depends on the season. Certain things bloom at certain times. There are a handful of locations that I know, that rose is going to bloom tomorrow. So I'm going to go back over there. So that's kind of what I look for. There are certain trees that shed. There's a few blocks away, there is a rainbow eucalyptus tree that if you haven't seen them, you really need to Google it because they are clearly magical. I mean, colors that you cannot, they look fake. This one does not have blues in it, but some of them have blues and purple and in the bark. So a couple times a year, they start to shed. And so, I knock on their door and I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to stand in your yard and I'm taking pictures. So I have cards. So I give them the cards when it's of their trees.
That's wonderful.
So I'm kind of.
They need to buy some artwork now.
Yes.
It's from their garden.
I agree completely.
What does the process look? You talked about hand embellishing. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, can you explain that a little bit and how that contributes and where you kind of get your ideas to go in and do that?
Well, for the most part, what I'm just doing is pumping up the color, pumping up the edges of the image. I have, here, let's see. Here's one, by the way. I mean, this is a small one I've just done. And this was just a rose that was, I don't know if you can see this. But
colors.
So what I try to do is just work and pump up these edges. Right now I'm using color pencil. I have some other pieces where I'm tearing them and adding Japanese papers, rice papers in between.
Wow.
So I'm trying to get those mounted, and I'm just working that way. Do you know Mark Bradford's work?
Mm-mm.
He's an artist here in LA. I first saw him on 60 Minutes. It was just incredible. But he tears all this paper and makes these massive, incredible pieces of art. So I've also been thinking about doing that, taking some of these edges and just tearing them and working with other media, other collage, other pieces of the same image. Sometimes I will add a different size of the same image and set it at a different angle to kind of reflect a growth pattern of the succulent or the flower. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. But I'm usually embellishing with color pencil. And like I said, I'm just starting to rework with collage.
So one thing we've talked about recently in the group is, when do we know when a piece is finished, right? It's such a fine line, right? Because I think any artist who's watching right now can relate to the fact that we've all either gone too far and recorded it and been like, why did I not stop at that point?
Yeah, or not enough.
Right, or we've had a really hard time not knowing when to stop. How do you assess that? What is that moment where you're like, okay, that's it?
I take it around from room to room with me. When I was painting, I'd have my work on big boards, and it would be, every room, in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the living room, in the dining room. I'd look at it, I'd want to see what it looks like from this angle, from this, all the way around. I did the same thing here before on the larger pieces before they were mounted. And it's just, I don't know, it's like it speaks to you when it's done. It's like, no, I'm not quite ready yet. Do another little, don't touch me. Don't put another stroke on here. So it's odd. I think each piece has its own story to tell, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I think I've shared with you, I like to put it on the fireplace and go to bed.
Yeah.
And then if I can see it with fresh eyes, I'll know exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
But when you're kind of in that moment and you're so invested in it, it's hard to step away and get some perspective, for sure. All right, so you have an amazing story. Let's go way back. Tell me about growing up. You grew up in Indianapolis. Tell me, was there something that you recall from as a child that kind of led to your passion for creativity, or when did that spark happen?
I grew up in Indianapolis. I left as a kid, but my grandparents were there. my grandfather had this big garden and just all kinds of flowers and fruits and vegetables. And so I would go with him to the nursery and so that was, I think, my first kind of connection and love to the garden, in a sense. Because when we moved here, we lived, there was really no yard. I mean, we lived in an apartment, and so I didn't really have any more connection to the garden or flowers unless, I happened to see them in the store. But as far as my connection to painting, I always knew I wanted to do something in art. I didn't know what. I went to a school and I studied art and design, but I never graduated. I got married young and had 2 fabulous children. But I was in the jewelry business at that point. I was in jewelry industry. And a friend told me about this wonderful place, Brentwood Art Center, which is a small private art school not too far from me. And the second I walked in, it was like, okay, this is where you need to be. So I started taking watercolor. And they had enough confidence in me to allow me to teach. So I taught watercolor there for 4 or 5 years. And then my marriage broke up. I had to find something to support my children. My kids and I, you do anything for your kids, right? So I gave up. I put my art career on hold, and I was able to find I was able to work with a company called Dean Witter at the time. My very good friend and my art mentor kind of connected me, family connection. But I didn't know what a stock was or a bond. I knew nothing. And so I studied trying to pass the exams, which I did not pass. And anyway, so I worked in that industry because I finally did and got a number of different licenses. And I don't know, 29 years later, I retired as a vice president and with Bank of America Merrill Lynch and an administrative manager. And I needed to get back to art. I needed to create again.
So during that, 17 or 27 years?
29.
29, wow. So during that time, you just didn't do anything creative. I mean, you were a single mom, holding down a full-time, very serious job. I mean, first of all, moms are superhumans, especially right now. So like a big shout out to all the moms. But
agreed.
Single moms are a whole other breed. Like, you guys are incredible. I know a couple of amazing single moms, and what you do, managing to have a career and raise children is incredible. So props and hats off to you for that. You were not able to really find the time, I'm sure, to be creative.
That's right. It's the weirdest thing. It's a whole right brain, left brain thing. When I was painting, I couldn't think of anything from a kind of a right brain world. When I really left that world, put that on hold, and started working in securities, it's like the synapse does not connect. I could not think artistically that point at all. But as I got a little closer to retirement and realizing, no, this is not where I want to be, then walking, being out being kind of allowing myself to de-stress a little bit, then the creativity, the way I saw the world creatively kind of seeped in, if that makes any sense at all. Yeah. I think there's been loads of studies done on how the garden, being outside, how nature brings the blood pressure down, helps de-stress. helps, I mean, really helps in healing. And so I kind of took that, I used that for myself as a way to kind of calm down a little bit. You know, I didn't realize how incredibly hyped and tensed I was on a regular basis.
There's so many people who, I meet that are right brain people, right? That are, attorneys or accountants or whatever, very, very right brain people. So, I don't have a creative bone in my body. But when you actually give them something creative to do, they're incredible. They just haven't necessarily spent the time tapping into that.
Well, yes, and they are creative in their own field. You know, I mean, they can create an approach or a defense, or whatever that is that they do. So, yeah, you look at the paper differently, whether it's blank paper and you're trying to look at it from a right brain life. Or you look at the same paper from a left brain life and see what imagery comes to it. It's just different.
So you come out of this 29-year career, raised your 2 amazing children. You finally have some time to really focus on the creativity, and you're feeling all inspired, and then something dreadful happens. So tell us.
Yeah, I started having a numbness in my thigh, and I thought, this is weird. And I went to the doctor, and within a week, I was in the hospital. I had had a surgery. I had colon cancer. And I went through 6 months of chemo. I had a second surgery at the end of 2018. And, I was laying down in the hospital bed, tubes and, everything. And I thought, no, it's now or never. I am going to push to get representation. I'm going to work to get my art out there. And by January of 2019, I was represented by a wonderful gallery in Ojai, California, which I don't know if you know it. It's everything is closed up there now, but it's a beautiful community. And I was with the Brittany Davis Gallery, and she's terrific. And so I was included in a number of shows, group shows there. I was a featured artist last September, and she included me in the Art Palm Springs Art Fair this year in February.
Just
and then, yes. Wow. And then everything hit. So, but thankfully, my health is good. But it was a kick. It was a kick in the what. It made me look and see, okay, what am I doing? If I'm going to do this, I have no excuses now. I have no excuses about being a single mom, because I'm not. I mean, my children are grown and adults, and with grandchildren who are fabulous, by the way. And, it's, what am I going to do? I'm going to push and get my art out there. So that's what I'm trying to do now. And thanks to you.
No, what you're doing is amazing. And, it's so impressive to, I think some people have those moments and kind of go to ground, right? It's like they feel defeated and they struggle to bounce back, understandably so, because it's chemo is no joke, right? Like I was sharing with you, I have some friends who went through it, and it's brutal on the body and the brain. But the fact that you were energized to really say, this is it, is just so amazing and commendable. And I love that I'm able to kind of watch you on this journey, and I'm excited to see what you do next.
Well, thank you. It's I still feel the effects of it, the chemo, neuropathy in my hands and feet, and but you push through it. You just do it because I'm alive. I mean, so as far as I'm concerned, anything above, what do they say? Any day above ground is a good day, because that's where it is. So, it's like, go for it now. Do it.
I love it. We could all learn from that. So tell me a little bit about your inspirations. Who are your creative inspirations?
Well, Georgia O'Keeffe was and is a huge inspiration. I mean, I saw her exhibit here at LACMA, or LA County Art Museum, in the late 80s. And it was just fabulous, you know. I've saw it in books for years, but to stand right in front of it and in essence kind of feel like a bee looking into the flower. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted the exploration of the flower or the tree or the texture, because I also want to make it almost abstract, so you can see you know what it is, but if you look at it just from the shape, it adds a different dimension to that. So she is a big inspiration. Mark Rothko, from a color standpoint, also, you know, the edges, the softness of the edges, and just the drenching of color. When I was doing watercolor, Charles Remy McIntosh, I don't know if you know his work.
No.
Scottish, I think. Beautiful watercolors. Architecturally, he did a lot of architectural landscapes, in a sense, a lot of buildings, and then did a lot of still lifes. So his work I like a lot as well.
It's amazing. Yeah, Georgia O'Keeffe is definitely one that, you know, when you see them in person, it's so much more.
Oh yeah,
I saw them in Santa Fe at a museum there, and just you know, the richness of that environment anyway, that part of the country, the colors, the terracottas and the sand, just there's so much richness anyway in that part of the world. And then to see the work that she was producing when she was, you know, had her studio out there was just amazing experience. So what do you hope that, or what have been some of the interesting responses that you've had to your work? Has there ever been anything that's kind of, you know, surprised you, somebody's reaction maybe to the work?
A while ago, well, many years ago, when I was doing a lot of the painting, it became more abstract. I had somebody say to me, "You must really have bad dreams." And I said, "Why do you say that?" And they said, "Because everything is all tangled." And, you know, I thought, no, that's actually the way we live. You know, I mean, if this is a pattern, if this is something that comes, it gets blocked and hidden and then comes up. We have these patterns in our lives that present themselves, and when we act on them or look at them, or then I think they change. But so that's kind of where my work was. But that was a strange response to me at the time. I thought it was very odd.
I think that says more about them than it does about your work.
Yeah, well, what do you say? I couldn't quite say that. That was yes, I agree.
How does it feel when somebody says, "I'll take it"?
You know, it's both joyous and terrifying at the same time. You know, I mean, I love to know where my work lives. You know, that's always great. And I love to know, I always ask people, can you send me a picture of where you've put it? Because I like to know that. The other part that gets a little crazy is, okay, are you sure? Are you sure you really want this?
No.
That's right. I could change it around a little bit.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. Why do we do that as creatives, right? There wouldn't be any other business where, you know, you'd be like, okay, are you sure you want this? Are you sure you want to buy this coffee? Can they change it for you? I can give you in a different cup. Are you sure you want it? Like we're so, because it's such a piece of us, right? It's such a vulnerability. I don't know about you, but there's certain pieces that I really would struggle to let go. Is there any one piece that particularly is, you know, you feel particularly close to or is very important to you that maybe you would struggle to sell?
Well, I always feel like the beginning of a pattern is, I always want to kind of keep those in a sense, because they they start me on another direction. So that I like to maintain. Excuse me. But on the other hand, I feel like, okay, I can let this one go because I know that I completed it in the best way that I could. It's just the weirdest feeling. We have the need to create. I want to put this out there. On the other hand, it's like, okay, here it goes. And it's like your child. It's like sending your child off to college.
How do your kids feel about your creativity? Are they creative themselves?
They are, both of them.
Really?
Yes. They take different approaches. My oldest is in the jewelry business as well at this point. She is also very creative. She has a very big picture view of the world, and she can put it all down just straight away. My youngest is a teacher and creates. She creates in a different way. She provides the imagery to her family in a teaching way. And when she allows it, she's also very good at drawing. And because I have some pieces where she did as a young kid, and they are fabulous. Wow. But she won't allow herself to do that as easily. But she also writes. She's a writer. So they're just,
and they're supportive
and they're creative.
Impressed by your accomplishments.
Oh, they're terrific. They kind of ground me in ways that I don't. When I'm high flying, and they go, "Okay, calm down, calm down."
What would you say the most rewarding or validating part of being an artist? Actually saying, I'm an artist. What do you think, since you kind of made that decision after your cancer diagnosis and your recovery, that has been the most rewarding or validating part of that journey?
Well, I think certainly when somebody says, okay, I want to include you, I want you here. Your work is of value, and I like the way it is presented. I like the look of it. And so that, to me, I think is a huge reward. It took me a very long time to even say the word, I'm an artist, because again, it's like, is it good enough? I mean, it's all that crazy that goes on in your head,
Yep. Those limiting beliefs.
Yes.
How important would you say community is in terms of getting to know other artists and having, feedback and critique? Is that something that you've had since you embarked on this journey, or is it something that you seek, or are you more of a, isolated creative?
Well, I do create. I mean, I create more by myself, but I need and love the community. When I was teaching at Brentwood Art Center, I met a number of other teachers, and we still to this day meet. We would go to each other's houses and talk for hours every couple of months. But now with COVID, we are on a Zoom call every other week. And then I have another group of friends where we do a weekly art call. Show me what you did this week. What have you done? Who's, and it's great. It's supportive. Not only do we talk about our lives and our families and art, but we support each other. And that's critical, because I don't, especially in the world now, not having just the ability to go out and see your friends, this is just wonderful for me. So, we do our Zoom call every other week, and then my other group is once a week.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's really good.
I think it's just we're so fortunate that we have these technological resources to be able to do this, because it's, otherwise, like you said, so many of us have not been able to see family and grandkids, but we have Zoom, we have Skype, we have all these amazing things. So something that we can be grateful for.
Oh, clearly. I do a FaceTime breakfast with my grandkids every day before school.
Are they in California too?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so nice. So one of the things that I think a lot of us have struggled with, it's, historically affected artists and writers and creatives for years, is creative block. Have you experienced that? And if so, how do you...
I'm sorry, creative what?
Creative block. So like block, artist block. Have you experienced it? And if so, how do you work through it? How do you get past it?
Well, now that my imagery is something that I can see every day, I try to work on 3, 4, 5 pieces at a time in different stages. Because if I'm blocked on something, on one of them, then I have to put it away. And then I can pick up something else, and then I can, be energized for that imagery for a while. And then, it just kind of circulates. So I've got, now that I've commandeered my dining room, I've got a number of pieces at various stages. It's like, okay, I know what I'm going to do with that one, but I haven't gotten to it yet. I've got this, so it's easier for me to avoid a block in that way, because I have I just work on something else until I can find an answer for the way that is supposed to look to me.
So you're somebody who seems to want to push themselves beyond, like, you master a certain area, you mastered watercolor to a place where you could actually teach, and then you've moved on to different mediums, photography and some collage. What is it that what are kind of the challenges and the benefits of switching to a new material, and what does that give you that maybe the one prior did not?
There's a through line on everything, I think. I think the connection is the imagery for me, whether it's abstract or whether it's representational. I don't know. I feel like putting one process down. I haven't been painting now for years, and working through with the photography, by at least using the colored pencil, I'm interacting with the paper again, which I didn't have when I was printing my images on the acrylic and the aluminum. So I couldn't touch the paper. So not only did I have the image that was similar, but now I'm kind of feeling like I'm back to having an actual tactile sense with the paper, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I do a lot of kind of collage and ripping of paper, and I like to have that that just like you said, like that tactile experience of assembling things. So I can totally relate. Are you somebody that needs to have that like divine inspiration to create, or are you someone who just kind of gets to work and sees what comes out?
A little bit of both. I think, again, since my imagery is outside and I can see something at any point, there are certain times where it's like, oh my goodness, this bloom is so incredible. And I just, I stand over it, I bend down on the ground, I'm taking pictures, and, people think I'm some kind of a weirdo. But so that divine inspiration comes from what I see. sometimes not so much. I come to think of it, I'm probably more on the inspiration side, because now it's like, okay, I'm not working to my capacity, because there's other things that are distracting me. And, but if I have a deadline, I'm on it. I can get everything done, and I can push and do that. So I haven't given myself deadlines, which is probably what I should be doing.
Well, the business coach in me wants to tell you yes, but the artist, no, you don't need deadlines. How do you feel in that moment? I think, for the non-artists out there, like when everything is aligning and you have the materials you need and you have the inspiration, what is that feeling?
Sheer joy. Really, it's like, oh, this all works. This all matches up. It's easy then, when it's all right and it all flows. To me, it's like, it's perfect, and then I have to try to make sure that I can make it good. The feeling is here, but it has to transfer here through to my hand to do it.
So what are your hopes for the future? What are your aspirations with your artwork? Do you have some big goals that you'd like to see in the next couple of years?
Well, I'd certainly like to be represented again by a gallery. I'd like to have that kind of prestige to say, okay, this gallery represents me. On the other hand, they take a huge percentage. They take a big percentage. So I don't know. I'm right now, I feel like I'm kind of treading water. I want to be able to put out what I have in my head and the imagery that I have thought about and think about. I'm trying to work on some smaller series. I'm doing some series of roses, of some rose buds, and then I've got another series where they're opening, and another one where they're like to the point where they're nearly dying. So I'm trying to work on those. I do prints as well. So that's kind of where I am. And I probably should be thinking about, 2 or 3 years down the line.
It's not necessary. I like to ask if there's some big dream, so that when we revisit and you've accomplished this dream, you can say, there you go. That was when I did it. What do you hope that people take away from the work?
Well, I want somebody to look at my work and say, just like have a sense of calmness. I know some people like the conflict, and they want they want to stir the anxiety, the angst in people. That's not where I am. Not anymore. I've had enough angst. That's enough. I want the calmness. I want beyond pretty, but I want somebody to say, I like living with that. I want to be able to have somebody say, yeah, that makes my life a little more comfortable. Does that make any sense?
Of course.
It's just, it's the stuff that goes on in our head, because that's what we do.
I think from everything that you've shared today, like, this is joyful for you. This is something that comes from a place, deep in your soul, and you want to be able to carry that forward. You want somebody to experience that, while they live with that piece. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is pretty much where I am, where I'm trying to go. First off, it has to make me happy, and I have to like it, and I have to feel like, okay, I want this in my house. I want to live with this, and then and then I want to be able to present it to somebody else, so.
Amazing. Well, Rhonda, this was wonderful. It was so nice to have hang out with you this morning, and thank you for getting up at the crack of dawn in California to join me.
Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed it, and it's one of those things where when I say, okay, I need to work through it, this was terrifying to me, and here I am. So yeah, very easy.
I told you it would just be like a chat in a coffee shop.
That's true. That's true.
So for anybody who wants to learn more about your work, where can they find you? What is your website?
Well, I'm still working on redoing my website. Instagram, I'm very easily found. It's Rhonda Burton Art on Instagram. I also have another Instagram site, which is Kentwood 524 Designs. And that is also my Etsy.
524 Designs, right?
Designs,
Okay, so I've added both of those to the Instagram, to the Facebook and the YouTube comments. So make sure that you go out and check out Rhonda's work. It is beautiful, really some stunning works there. So do reach out to Rhonda if you're interested in purchasing anything. Obviously, you can get hold of her via her social media accounts.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Rhonda, and thank you to everybody who tuned in today. We will be back again next Friday with another fabulous artist, but I just want to give a big shout out to Rhonda and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Rachel. Really, I appreciate it.
All right. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.